By the time I came around the last bend and saw 3 men trying to pry open my front door with a crowbar, I understood 2 things at once. My quiet weekend was dead. And some people will try to steal your land with a clipboard before they ever bother with a gun. Black polos, white block letters, Aspen Ridge HOA Patrol. I'd driven up to my mountain cabin for steaks, bourbon, and silence. Instead, I rolled straight into an attempted takeover. My name's Danny Block. I'm ex-military. I built that cabin with my own hands, and I know the difference between real authority and a costume. The place sits in the mountains of Gila County, Arizona. It's my retreat, my reset button. I bought the land free and clear through a veteran land program title, recorded taxes, paid utilities active, every inch legal. It was never part of Aspen Ridge HOA. Not on paper, not on a map, not in reality. So when my headlights hit that black SUV parked sideways at my gate, I knew right away something was wrong. I slammed the truck into park and stepped out. Rico and Michael climbed out behind me, old friends, both veterans, both the kind of men who get very still when trouble starts acting stupid. I yelled, "Hey, what the hell are you doing to my house?" All 3 turned. One had the crowbar jammed into my doorframe. One was holding a radio. One stood off to the side watching the road. Big guys, shaved heads, broad shoulders, too confident for men with no business being there. The bald one said, "You're not authorized to occupy this structure. This property falls under Aspen Ridge HOA jurisdiction. We're conducting a structural inspection." I laughed right in his face. "No," I said, walking closer, "you're breaking into my house." He stepped toward me like he thought size could replace paperwork. "You need to vacate the premises or there will be consequences." That was when Michael lifted his phone and started recording. Rico folded his hands behind his back and asked, calm as church on Sunday, "Do any of you gentlemen have a warrant?" They glanced at each other. "No warrant," I said. "No jurisdiction, no right to be here." One of them muttered, "We were following HOA orders." "HOA orders don't mean a damn thing on land you don't own," I said. "This property is mine, deeded, taxed, registered, mine." Then the bald one did the dumbest thing he could have done. He lunged. Rico caught him halfway in, twisted his wrist, and put him on the gravel so fast it looked like the man had simply tripped over his own bad decisions. The crowbar clanged across the yard. The second guy threw his hands up. The third spun toward the SUV. I pulled the gate remote from my pocket and hit the button. The steel gate slid shut behind him with a hard mechanical slam. "Congratulations," I said. "Now you get to wait for the sheriff." The one still standing blurted, "Karen told us the place was abandoned." I stared at him. "Karen Truman," he nodded too quickly. "She said the owner wasn't around. Said the house was unclaimed, that the HOA could inspect it and file vacancy paperwork." "Unclaimed," I said. "That's funny because I was paying taxes on it while you idiots were trying to break into it." I called the sheriff, gave exact coordinates, and then we stood there in the mountain, quiet wind in the pines. One man groaning in the gravel while the others realized they were not the toughest people in the yard anymore. The deputies arrived in about 15 minutes. I showed them the porch camera footage, time-stamped and crystal clear, one of Karen's hirelings jamming a crowbar into my door. Michael showed them the phone video. Rico stepped back and let them take over. Within 10 minutes, all 3 men were in handcuffs. The next morning, Rico, Michael, and I went to the sheriff's office to give statements. I handed over everything: security footage, gate logs, utility records, timestamps. Then one of the guys, Jake, the middle one, asked to talk. When we walked into the interview room, he looked nothing like the swaggering fake enforcer from the night before. "She told us the house was abandoned," he said. "Said if we documented deterioration and got access, the HOA could file a vacancy claim and absorb the parcel into a planned expansion." I felt my jaw tighten. "Absorb," I said. "That's a pretty word for theft." Jake looked sick. Then he said the thing that changed everything. "She's done it before." According to him, Karen had a method: target seasonal cabins, claim the owners were gone too long, file fake inspection reports, push false vacancy notices, slide altered maps and sham votes through HOA meetings before anybody noticed. By the time the real owners found out, they were already buried under fines, legal threats, and paperwork. Then Karen tried to rewrite the story. A local article went up painting me and my friends as violent militia types who had interrupted a lawful inspection. No mention of the crowbar, no mention of the arrest, just neat little lies. My lawyer, Gavin Morris, called me that afternoon. "They're trying to bury you procedurally," he said. "Code violations, nuisance claims, whatever they can invent." He was right. By evening, county inspectors were at my cabin checking fire risk and septic compliance. Problem was, I had records for everything. They left apologizing. But the real break came from somebody Karen never expected to turn her former office manager, Laura Donovan. She called me and said, "You need to know what she's really doing." Laura showed up at a diner off the highway with folders, internal emails, target lists, parcel maps marked in red and green. Red for acquired, green for targeted. Mine was green. Karen had been planning to take my property for weeks. One email said it plain as day. Initiate access protocol. Push visual deterioration narrative. Claim absentee status. Acquire under emergency compliance vote. That wasn't confusion. That was a script. Gavin moved fast. He filed for an emergency injunction. We submitted Laura's documents, the certified county parcel map, the videos, the affidavits, everything. Michael uploaded our full uncut footage online. No edits, no spin, just the truth. It spread fast. Funny thing about bullies. They love silence, but they panic when somebody turns on the lights. Karen came into court with 2 lawyers and a face like she still believed she could charm her way out of it. Gavin stood up and carved her whole story apart. He showed the real county map, then the altered one her team tried to use. He read Laura's emails into the record. He played the footage of her men at my door with a crowbar. Then he asked the question that shut the room down. If this was a lawful inspection, why did they arrive with no credentials, no warrant, and tools for forced entry? Karen's lawyer tried to talk around it. The judge wasn't having it. The injunction was granted on the spot. Aspen Ridge HOA was barred from touching my property or any nearby disputed parcel until the court could review the fraud claims. Outside the courthouse, cameras got shoved in my face, and I said exactly what I meant. I built that house with my own hands. Nobody gets to take it with a fake map and a clipboard. That should have made Karen back off. Instead, it made her desperate. Anonymous complaints started hitting county offices. Somebody smashed my mailbox. Roofing nails got scattered across my driveway. Then Laura called again, voice shaking. "They're shredding files." That tip got the sheriff a warrant. What they pulled from the HOA office was worse than any of us guessed. Forged signatures, altered parcel records, fake board minutes, bogus annexation drafts, and filings under false names. One signature was supposedly from a county official who'd been out of office for years. That was the moment the whole thing cracked open. The DA got involved. Criminal charges followed. Jake flipped and turned state's witness. Karen's own people started feeding investigators everything she'd used to build her little paper empire. And then came the part, I'll be honest, I enjoyed. Karen Truman got arrested in her bathrobe. Middle of the morning, deputies at her front door, neighbors peeking through blinds, Karen shouting about overreach while the cuffs clicked on anyway. After that, Aspen Ridge residents started coming to me. Not angry, embarrassed. One woman brought muffins and an apology. A contractor brought copies of Karen's emails. A young couple brought photos from another property the HOA had absorbed while the owner was overseas. That was when I realized I wasn't just fighting for my cabin. I was the first person who happened to come home in time with cameras running and enough stubbornness not to fold. 3 months later, Aspen Ridge HOA was dissolved, Karen was convicted, her board scattered, the court froze the accounts, reviewed the stolen parcels, and I won my civil case. It was walking back onto my porch one evening, hearing nothing but wind in the trees, knowing the house still stood exactly where I'd built it, and no one in a polo shirt was ever going to touch it again. I used part of the settlement to strengthen the place, new gate posts, better cameras, brighter floodlights. I used another part to help start a small nonprofit for property owners dealing with HOA abuse and fraudulent land claims. And that's the lesson I took from all of it. Power doesn't always come wearing a badge. Sometimes it comes in polished language, official forms, fake concern, and just enough confidence to make decent people doubt what they already know is true. That's how a lot of evil works, not with a bang, but with a signature and a smile. But I learned something else too. Bullies count on people being tired, isolated, and scared of the process. The minute somebody stands up, keeps receipts, and drags the truth into daylight, their whole little kingdom starts wobbling. These days, the mountain is quiet again. Rico still cheats at cards. Michael still pretends he doesn't. The gate is stronger, the sign is bigger, and the porch where this mess began is just a porch again. And every now and then, when I look out over that ridge at sunset, I think about how close I came to losing a home, not to fire or flood or war, but to paperwork arrogance and a woman who mistook control for ownership. So tell me this, when does enforcing community rules become organized theft? And if somebody tried to take your home with lies, forged documents, and fake authority, How far would you go to stop them? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you've ever dealt with HOA abuse, zoning scams, or someone weaponizing rules to push you off your own land, share your story too. I'd really like to hear it.